Well, g'day folks, how are you today? Hope you're having a pretty good one. I'm going to turn a few of my lights on so I'm sort of filled in on left, right and other sides. How have you been? How was your weekend? Did you have a good one? I didn't have a bad one. I hope you caught up with the quick chat that I had with Tony Harrison yesterday. We've got together and recorded a little something that I'll play to you maybe the end of this week or early next week once I've got the whole thing put together. If you see me looking around tonight, I've got your chat sitting up over here, so that's sort of where I'm looking if you're wondering why I'm gazing up over there. So g'day Brett, I see he's in the room. Hello to the Roys, Paul, Brett, Chris, hello. Who was first in? Kath, all the way from Adelaide. How's Adelaide looking today? Bloody chilly, I suspect. Mr. Bergworth, nice to have you in the house too, brother, and all folks associated with my place. I hope you are all having a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful evening. Tonight, something a little different. I haven't got an interview for you tonight. Haven't got anything much to talk to you about. I've got something in the mail today. I thought you might like to hear a bit about it. Now, there is a book you can buy. You can go to Scribe to buy it. It's only $7. It is a book that's hard to find anywhere else, I've found. This book was... Well, maybe I should just begin reading it to you, and you'll get an idea of where it came from. It is an interesting book where many things seem to be detailed, and the timelines of both of the book's discovery, of its first, if you like, release, and how it came to be in the public domain is interesting. The fact that it's in the public domain suggests everybody might know about it. But I can guarantee you have probably never heard of this book. It is called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It has a foreword written by somebody called James Senna, but it is ostensibly written by an anonymous person. The foreword to it here says, this book was derived from a document which represents the program adopted by the Policy Committee of the Bilderberg Group during its first publicly known meeting in 1954. The following document, dated May 1979, was found on July 7th, 1986, in an IBM copier that had been purchased at a surplus sale. It's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. The following document that I'll read you is derived from two sources. The first one, listed on an unknown website, the book titled Behold a Pale Horse by the late Willaim Cooper, Light Technology Publishing, 1991. And the second source is a copied document which does not contain an author, copyright notice, or a publisher's name. The document in its original form does not include these initial paragraphs, forward or preface. This is a restored document with illustrations. There's no known first-hand knowledge of the authenticity of the document. Nevertheless, the ideas, the concepts, and the strategies mentioned within it are reasonable, important, potentially dangerous, and deserve serious and thoughtful consideration. There are certainly others who have had additional information about the source of this document, and better, more detailed copies may exist. All right, what is it all about? Well, the words contained in this document, which make up the book, were distributed by an unknown person, and that doesn't matter. This document was left on an antiquated copier, accidentally or incidentally, for someone to eventually find. That doesn't matter either. There are clandestine copies of this clandestine document all over the internet, with or without illustrations, and that does not matter. What does matter is the information contained in the pages of the document and now in the book that I'm about to read you. What matters is truth. Names of officials in certain locations were changed or redacted. The text has not been altered. If this is some sort of forgery or faked design to distract the people of America and the world, then it is a respectable intellectual exercise. If it is a truth, or it is actually being carried out, then the people of the United States, the Americas, Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia are all in mortal danger. The preface. Conspiracies are not new to history. The Bible... Maybe I should bring this microphone a bit closer. Beg your pardon. The Bible is replete with conspiracies, from Cain's contemplation to kill his brother Abel to Judas Iscariot's colluding with the religious and political leadership of the time to kill the Nazarene. There were plots to kill Julius Caesar. What goes unnoticed is that it is rare that solid evidence to such plots and schemes actually comes to light or are known by the people in general. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, Operations Research Technical Manual, was discovered in July 1986 when an employee of the Boeing Aircraft Company purchased a surplus IBM copier for scrap parts at a sale. Inside the copier was discovered detailed plans, undoubtedly put together during the early days of the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. This cryptic, detailed, anonymous document called for control of the masses of Americans and eventually the peoples of the world through manipulation of industry, media, entertainment, education, and political party posturing. It focuses on a quiet revolution or silent ethnic revolution that constantly pits man against man, woman against woman, sister against sister, and brother against brother in order to divert the public's attention from what is really going on behind the scenes. The document contained in this book is real. It is left in its original form and format, read carefully, thoughtfully, and quietly with your high school American history and world history books at hand or in remembrance. The truth of how past and current events has been shaped and reshaped according to someone's elaborate design will quietly blow your mind. So we skip to part 1. Top secret, it says at the top of the page. I would share this page that I'm reading with you, folks. It's just that I've had to purchase the book and it's come through in a reader. And I'm not sure if I show that reader to you, I could get in all sorts of crap. And I'm not reading it word for word for you, but I'm not changing anything. I'm just not making it quite theirs, but I'm not changing the intent of the words at all. So that's why I'm not sharing the document. You can see it, but if you type in Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, you'll be able to go and download it yourself and have a bit of a look. So, top secret, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, Operations Research Technical Manual, TW-SW7905-1. It opens. Welcome aboard. This publication marks the 25th anniversary of the Third World War, called the Quiet War, being conducted using subjective biological warfare fought with silent weapons. This book contains an introductory description of this war, its strategies, and its weaponry. It's dated May 1979. It is patently impossible to discuss social engineering or the automation of a society, i.e., the engineering of social automation systems or silent weapons, on a national or worldwide scale without implying extensive objectives of social control and destruction of human life, i.e., slavery and genocide. This manual is in itself an analog declaration of intent. Such a writing must be secured from public scrutiny. That means it can't be seen in public. Otherwise, it might be recognized as a technically formal declaration of domestic war. Understand that, folks. This manual is in itself an analog declaration of intent. Such a writing must be secured from public scrutiny. Otherwise, it might be recognized as a technical, formal declaration of domestic war. Furthermore, whenever any person or group of persons in a position of great power and without full knowledge and consent of the public uses such knowledge and methodologies for economic conquest, it must be understood that a state of domestic warfare exists between said person or group of persons and the public. Understand that? They have declared war on us. The solution of today's problems requires an approach which is ruthlessly candid, with no agonizing over religious, moral, or cultural values. You see that? No agonizing over ruthlessly candid religious, moral, or cultural values. You have qualified for this project because of your ability to look at human society with cold objectivity, and yet analyze and discuss your observations and conclusions with others of similar intellectual capacity without the loss of discretion or humility. Such virtues are exercised in your own best interest. Do not deviate from them. Keep it quiet. Make sure you only tell people you trust. Historical introduction. Silent weapon technology has evolved from operations research, a strategic and tactical methodology developed under the military management in England during World War II. The original purpose of operations research was to study the strategic and tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies, i.e., logistics. It was soon recognized by those in positions of power that the same methods might be useful for totally controlling a society. But better tools were necessary. Social engineering, the analysis and automation of a society, requires the correlation of great amounts of constantly changing economic information, or data, as we might call it today. So, a high-speed computerized data processing system was necessary, which could race ahead of the society and predict when society would arrive at that place of capitulation. Relay computers were very slow, but the electronic computer, invented in 1946 by J. Presper Eckert and John W. Mulkey, I think that's how you say his name, filled the bill. The next breakthrough was the development of the simplex method of linear programming. That was in 1947 by a mathematician called George Danzig. And then in 1948, the third piece, the transistor, invented by Barden and Bratton, and promised great expansion of the computer field by reducing space and power requirements. These three inventions under their direction is the key line there in that sense. Strongly suspected that it was possible for them to control the whole world with a push of a button. Immediately, the Rockefeller Foundation got in on the ground floor by making a 4-year grant to Harvard College, funding the Harvard Economic Research Project for the study of the structure of the American economy. 1 year later, in 1949, the United States Air Force joined in. In 1952, the grant period terminated and a high-level meeting of the elite was held to determine the next phase of social operations research. The Harvard Project had been very fruitful, as is borne out by the publication of some of its results in 1953, suggesting the feasibility of economic social engineering. Engineered in the last half of the decade of the 40s, the new quiet war machine stood, so to speak, in sparkling gold-plated hardware on the showroom floor, ready to go by 1954. With the creation of the Massa in 1954, the promise of unlocking unlimited sources of fusion atomic energy from the heavy hydrogen in salt water and the consequent availability of unlimited social power was the possibility only decades away. Combination, and in fact the whole idea would have proved irresistible, of course. Although the silent weapons system was nearly exposed 13 years later, the evolution of the new weapons system has never suffered any major setbacks. This volume marks the 25th anniversary of the beginning of the Quiet War. Already, this domestic war has had many victories on many fronts throughout the world. Political introduction. In 1954, it was well recognized by those in positions of authority that it was only a matter of time, only a few decades, before the general public would be able to grasp and upset the cradle of power. For the very elements of the new silent weapon technology were as accessible for the public utopia as they were for those providing a private utopia. The issue of primary concern of that dominance revolved around the subject of energy sciences. Energy. Energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. Natural science is the study of the sources and control of natural energy, and social science, theoretically expressed as economics, is the study of the sources and control of social energy. Both are bookkeeping systems, mathematics. Therefore, mathematics is the primary energy science, and the bookkeeper can be king if the public can be kept ignorant of the methodology of the bookkeeping. All science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge, the end is control. Beyond this remains only one issue: who will be the beneficiary. In 1954, this was the issue of primary concern. Although the so-called moral issues were raised, although the so-called moral issues were raised, in view of the law of natural selection, it was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. Such people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. That's an important paragraph to remember, folks. In 1954, this was the issue of primary concern. Although the so-called moral issues were raised, in view of the law of natural selection, it was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than the animals who do not have intelligence. Such people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. Consequently, in the interest of future world order, peace, and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public with an ultimate objective of permanently shifting the natural and social energy, that would be wealth, of the undisciplined and irresponsible many into the hands of the self-disciplined and responsible worthy few. In order to implement this objective, it was necessary to create, secure, and apply new weapons, which, as it turned out, were a class of weapons so subtle and so sophisticated in their principle of operation and public appearance as to earn for themselves the name silent weapons. This concept was never more than a questionable theory of elitist Charles Darwin, but obviously it got borne out. In conclusion, the objective of economic research as conducted by the magnates of capital, that's banking, and the industries of commodity, that's goods and services, is the establishment of an economy which is totally predictable and manipulatable. In order to achieve a totally predictable economy, the low-class elements of society must be brought under total control, i.e., they must be housebroken, trained, and assigned a yoke and long-term social duties from a very early age, before they've even got an opportunity to question the propriety of the matter. In order to achieve such conformity, the lower-class family unit must be disintegrated by a process of increasing preoccupation of the parents and the establishment of government-operated daycare centres for the occupationally orphaned children. The quality of education given to the lower classes must be of the poorest sort, so that the mote of ignorance, isolating the inferior class from the superior class, is and remains incomprehensible to the inferior class. That, folks, is why many people do not understand there is any problem. That line right there. The quality of education given to the lower class must be of the poorest sort, so that the mote of ignorance, isolating the inferior class from the superior class, is and remains incomprehensible to the inferior class. They just don't understand how it happens. With such an initial handicap, even bright lower class individuals have little, if any, hope of extricating themselves from their assigned lot in life. This form of slavery is essential to maintain some measure of social order, peace, and tranquility. Who for? For the ruling upper classes, of course. Now, the descriptive introduction of the silent weapon. Everything that is expected from an ordinary weapon is expected from a silent weapon by its creators, but only in its own manner of functioning. It shoots situations instead of bullets, propelled by data processing instead of chemical reaction, originating from bits of data instead of grains of gunpowder from a computer, instead of a gun, operated by a computer programmer instead of a marksman, under the orders of a banking magnate instead of the orders of a military general. It makes no obvious explosive noise, causes no obvious physical or mental injuries, and does not obviously interfere with anyone's daily social life. Yet, it makes an unmistakable noise, causes unmistakable physical and mental damage, and, well, damages daily social life, and unmistakable to the trained observer, one that knows who to look for, the unmistakable noise that creates damage in society all over. The public cannot comprehend the weapon and therefore cannot believe that they are being attacked and subdued by a weapon. So we've just described exactly their weapon, the silent weapon. And how do you attack a silent weapon? Well, bloody good question. The public cannot express their feeling in a rational way about the weapon or handle the problem with intelligence, because those folks who've got intelligence are obviously in the elite, or at least that's what they'd have you believe. Therefore, they don't know how to cry for help. That's us they're talking about, the lower classes. We do not know how to cry for help, do not know how to associate with others to defend ourselves against it. That's what we are learning, and this is why my place plays such a large role, at least in my look at the future. That's what I believe it can help with our education going forward. When a silent weapon is applied gradually, the public adjusts, adapts to its pressures, and learns to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure, psychological via economic, becomes too great and they crack. Where have you seen that psychological pressure ramped up on us? Of course, in the last few years, with governments throwing down edicts left, right, and centre. Therefore, the silent weapon is a type of biological warfare. It attacks the vitality, options, and mobility of the individuals of a society by knowing, understanding, manipulating, and attacking their sources of natural and society energy and their physical, mental, and emotional strengths and weaknesses. The theoretical introduction. Give me control over a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its law. That's a quote from Mayer Amschel Rothschild from 1743 to 1812. Today's silent weapons technology is an outgrowth of a simple idea discovered, succinctly expressed, and effectively applied by the quoted Mr. Mayer Amschel Rothschild. Mr. Rothschild discovered the missing passive component of economic theory, known as economic inductance. He, of course, did not think of his discovery in these 20th century terms, and to be sure, mathematical analysis had to wait for the second industrial revolution, the rise of the theory of mechanics and electronics, and finally the invention of the electronic computer, before it could be effectively applied in the control of the world economy. General energy concepts. In the study of energy systems, there always appears three elementary concepts. There are potential energy, kinetic energy, and energy dissipation. And corresponding to these concepts, there are three idealized, essentially pure physical counterparts called passive components. In electronic science, kinetic energy is stored in an inductor in a magnetic field instead of a mass. This property is called inductance instead of inertia. In economics, these three energy concepts are associated with economic capacitance, that's capital, money, stock, inventory, investments in buildings and durables, etc. 2, economic conductance of goods, that's production flow coefficients. And 3, economic inductance services, where the influence of the population on industry and output is measured. All of the mathematical theory developed in the study of one energy system, e.g. mechanics, electronics, can be immediately applied in the study of any other energy system. So, Mr. Rothschild's energy discovery. Well, what he discovered was the basic principle of power, influence, and control over people as applied to economics. The principle is, when you assume the appearance of power, people soon give it to you. Mr. Rothschild had discovered that currency, or deposit loan accounts, had the required appearance of power that could be used to induce people, inductance with people corresponding to a magnetic field, if you like, coming together, into surrendering their real wealth in exchange for a promise of greater wealth instead of real compensation. They would put up real collateral in exchange for a loan of promissory notes. Mr. Rothschild found that he could issue more notes than he had backing for, so long as he had someone's stock of gold as a persuader to show his customers. Mr. Rothschild loaned his promissory notes to individuals and to governments. These would create overconfidence. Then he would make money scarce, tighten control of the system, and collect the collateral through the obligation of contracts. The cycle was then repeated. These pressures could be used to ignite a war. Then he would control the availability of currency to determine who would win that war. That government, which agreed to give him control of its economic system, got his support. Collection of debts was guaranteed by economic aid to the enemy of the debtor. The profit derived from this economic methodology made Mr. Rothschild all the more able to expand his wealth. He found that the public greed would allow currency to be printed. Wow, what a shock we've got there. Government could order bonds and they could print money beyond limits. That would be the inflationary limit that he'd be referring to. And they could print money, paper money, over the backing in precious metals or the production of goods and services. Apparent capital as paper, an inductor. In this structure, credit, presented as a pure element called currency, has the appearance of capital, but it is in effect negative capital. Hence, it has the appearance of service, but is in fact indebtedness or debt. It is therefore an economic inductance instead of an economic capacitance, and if balanced in no other way, will be balanced by the negation of population, that's war or genocide. The total goods and services represent real capital called the gross national product, and currency may be printed up to this level and still represent economic capacitance. But currency printed beyond this level is subtractive. It represents the introduction of economic inductance and constitutes notes of indebtedness. War is therefore the balancing of the system by killing the true creditors, the public, which we have taught to exchange true value for inflated currency, and falling back on whatever is left of the resources of natural and regeneration of those resources. Mr. Rothschild had discovered that currency gave him the power to rearrange the economic structure to his own advantage, to shift economic inductance to those economic positions which would encourage the greatest economic instability and oscillation. The final key to economic control had to wait until there was sufficient data and high-speed computing equipment to keep close watch on the economic oscillations created by price stocking or price shocking and excess paper energy credits. Paper inductive inflation, they are calling that. The breakthrough. The aviation field provided the greatest evolution in economic engineering by way of the mathematical theory of shock testing. In this process, a projectile is fired from an airframe on the ground, and the impulse of the recoil is monitored by vibration transducers connected to the airframe and wired to chart recorders. By studying the echoes or reflections of the recoil impulse in the airframe, it's possible to discover critical vibrations in the structure of the airframe, which either vibrations of the engine or some part of the airframe or the wings, or a combination of the two, might reinforce, resulting in a resonant self-destruction of the airframe in flight. From this standpoint of engineering, this means that the strengths and weaknesses of the structure of the airframe in terms of vibrational energy can be discovered and manipulated. Bear in mind, the same process is now going to be ascribed to economics. To use this method of airframe shock testing in economic engineering, the prices of commodities are shocked, and the public consumer reaction is monitored. Like petrol. Turn page. The resulting echoes of the economic shock are interpreted theoretically by computers and the psychoeconomic structure of the economy is thus discovered. It is by this process that partial, differential, and difference matrices are discovered that define the family household and make possible its evaluation as an economic industry. Then the response of the household to future shocks can be predicted and manipulated. The society becomes well regulated, like a well regulated animal, with its reins under control of a sophisticated computer regulated social energy bookkeeping system. Eventually, every individual element of the structure comes under computer control. Through a knowledge of personal preferences, such knowledge, guaranteed by Computer Association of Consumer Preferences, Universal Product Code, UPC, zebra-striped pricing codes on packages, with identified consumers, identified via association with the use of a credit card and later a permanent tattooed body number, invisible under normal ambient illumination. So bear in mind, folks, they're talking here about chipping us. That's what they're talking about many, many years ago when they wrote this book. In the summary, economics is only a social extension of a natural energy system. It also has its three passive components because of the distribution of wealth and the lack of communication and lack of data. This field has been the last energy field for which a knowledge of these three passive components has been developed. Since energy is the key to all activity on the face of the earth, it follows that in order to attain a monopoly of energy, raw materials, goods, and services, and to establish a world system of slave labor, it is necessary to have a first strike capability in the field of economics. In order to maintain our position, it is necessary that we have absolute first knowledge of the science of control over all economic factors and the first appearance at engineering the world economy. In order to achieve such sovereignty, we must at least achieve this one end, that the public will not make either the logical or mathematical connection between the economics and the other energy sciences, or learn to apply such knowledge. This is becoming increasingly difficult to control because more and more businesses are making demands upon their computer programmers to create and apply mathematical models for the management of those businesses. It's only a matter of time before the new breed of private programmer economist will catch on to the far-reaching implications of the work begun at Harvard in 1948. The speed with which they can communicate their warning to the public will largely depend on how effective we've been at controlling the media, subverting education, and keeping the public distracted with matters of no real importance. Have I read enough for you, folks? That's, I don't know what page we're up to, but there are 78 pages in this book. And it is unfreaking believable to read. I've spent most of the day jogging my way through it. If you would like to try and find this book, I got it on Scribd, and the name of the book is Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It is a phenomenal read. Can I just say that? After that summary, it goes on to the economic model. It goes on to show industrial diagrams about how you break the model. An ideal industry is defined as a device which receives value from other industries in several forms and converts them into one specific product for sales and distribution to other countries. It has several inputs and one output. What the public normally think of as one industry is really an industrial complex, where several industries under one roof produce one or more products. A pure single output industry can be represented oversimply by a circuit block. Nice way of thinking about it. So there are some fairly interesting diagrams here that they use to break down and show you how the industrial model works. there is a breakdown on the 3 industrial classes: aggregation, the electronic model, economic inductance is explained, inductive factors to consider in the translation, time flow relationships, and self-destructive oscillations are covered. In fact, that's a good couple of pages there. There is a detailed schematic plan for how to do this to all of us, how they gain the power and how they pull the wool over our eyes. Now, I don't begin to suggest for one moment that this was begun in 1948. It wasn't. It may have just been formalized and written down in this state for the first time in 1948. But this has been around for a long time. This plan has been around for a long time. And I believe this document was probably written at around the time where computers were coming into their own, but those who were working those computers knew they had limitations. They hadn't got fast enough yet. They weren't big enough yet, weren't able to do exactly what was required yet at the speed that is required. Bear in mind, folks, essentially much of what I was speaking about there in the document is data capturing, data manipulation. And they have been planning on taking your data since the first IBM punch card was, well before the first IBM punch card was ever thought of. So I would commend this book to you. And if you want, I think I've probably read a bit much of it for tonight, but there is a chance I could read a bit more if you felt the urge somewhere down the track. What are you saying, folks? Let's have a bit of a look and see who's commenting what. Let me bring this down here so I'm not breaking my neck looking up there for you. Saying it for years, Graham? Yes, Graham. 100%. Start reading, folks. They make it very difficult for us to find these books. They make it very difficult. But I believe in every country in the world, there is one bookshop that has a library of books not dissimilar to this, books that others might call conspiracy theories, books written by people many, many, many years ago describing what was going on then. Now, these bookshops are not well known. They are not publicly advertised, I don't think. I don't think they wave the flag around. But they do exist. And I was informed of that by the person who sent me this document. So thank you for sending that to me too, by the way. There are a lot of interesting documents get set this way. So yes, there are many, many truths to be learned in books. Of course, there are many, many lies told in books as well. How do you pick which book to read? Well, I think we've got a good start now on what we want to find and what we want to research. And some of these older texts dating back hundreds of years, I would love to sink my teeth into. Well, wrap my eyes around maybe, but not sink my teeth in. It gets a bit messy when you start dribbling on old parchment. But yeah, there are these sorts of bookshops around. Read, 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 folks. And get your kids doing it. Get your kids to read. They're not doing it these days. I was only having a conversation with a guy yesterday, and yeah, it was a interesting chat about the way that kids aren't being pushed towards books anymore. Paul L., you really must be a fucktard, aren't you? Thank you for joining us, fucktard. It's a pleasure to have you. If you can't tell that I'm reading from a document, not a teleprompter, you're more of an idiot than God put breath into you to expect, I suppose. But thank you for joining us. Another troll in the hole. So wonderful to have you around, you boring little turds. So just trying to scram down and see what's here. Paul L., don't know anything about Redcliffe Sunday markets. Forced to accept cash. I don't know. I was at markets on Friday night. There was no force to accept cash anywhere. I wasn't at the Redcliffe markets, but I was at people's other markets, and they would take cash. I guess they would take card as well, but there were plenty of people taking cash. And I'm with you. If they don't take cash, then boycott them. There you go. Galactic Larry Canis found the PDF for free Where were you this afternoon, you bastard? I had to pay for it. All right, folks, that is the, you might want to, I'll leave that up for a while. So, oops, I'm beating the microphone. I'll leave that up for a while so you can copy that down, or just, if you were smart, half smart, you'd probably walk up to the, whatever you're watching on and take a screenshot, or just take a screenshot on your phone if you're watching on a phone. And you might then be able to go and write that down. But yes, it is certainly not the easiest of remembered websites at this stage. But take a photo of it, and we'll get it down. I don't even think I can copy and paste that out into anything else to put up there, so that you could click on. But I beg your pardon, folks. But at any rate, it is up there. That's the one. If you want to get a free copy of it, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It is an immensely interesting document. Real page turner, you could say. There is shock after shock after shock. So, Bill, what have you been saying? You've been typing 8 comments previously and nothing. What, they didn't pop up? Well, that's a bit rude. Did you hit enter? I'm not sure if people are knocking you off. I can't imagine they would be. Or are you just putting up comments that generally we wouldn't share, Bill? This seems a bit unlike you, if that is the case. Having a bit of a glance, having 2 computers going, my previous 8 comments were not showing. Right. Okay. Oh, okay, Bill. Well, I don't know why. Well, I'm only watching the Facebook 2, 3. I'm only seeing 5 feeds at the moment. So None 2K, Voice of Freedom, and there doesn't appear to be anybody watching on Facebook, which is fine. So I don't know where your comments aren't going, Bill, but nobody here should be deleting them, I don't think. Tanya wants me to keep reading. Thank you, Tanya. Oh yes, look, Vince, that's a regular thing, mate. YouTube, just so I'm not sure whether folks are aware or not. YouTube ban, as part of the banning process, and because I have a strike against me on 2 channels, and have been basically running 2 strikes for the last 2 years on both channels, they minimize anything to do with the Voice of Freedom channel. So we did a little test the other day with a live that I did during the day, and asked people to either click the subscribe button or the like button or both. And as it turned out, I wound up getting a number of emails from people who said there is no subscribe button on the page. So you can't subscribe to it. They've removed my subscribe button. That wasn't the same for everybody. Some did have a subscribe button on it, but then you couldn't like the show. You weren't able to subscribe to it either, but they had both buttons. So as part of the algorithm and you know, the restraints that YouTube have placed on, well, me and others, they don't let the notifications go out, or if they do put them out, they put them out 2 minutes or 2 seconds before you're on air, or you'll get it the next day after the show's been on air. Notifications, any kind of subscription or subscribing, any kind of thumbs up, liking, YouTube, for the most part, just ignore. And they do not promote any of my content, not that I would expect them to, but they do remove any sign of it popping up, you know, on a scroll through of what's available to be watched, any of that. So I won't pop up on a random feed. Nothing from the Voice of Freedom will just pop up randomly while you're scrolling through YouTube looking to look at something one day. They make sure that none of that happens. And I think they pretty much do that for anybody who's talking about the things we sort of talk about. So don't know that it's going to change until YouTube are brought to heel by the military. And if it's not by the military, then by the people. And if it's, I think, brought to heel by the people, there isn't going to be a YouTube at the end of it. In fact, I don't think there's going to be a YouTube at the end of it anyway. Goodbye, Google and associated others. Yeah, Richard, nice to have you on board from overseas, mate. And yes, the book has been around a while, and it was only shown to me today. But by all means, folks, get a copy of it.
Get a copy of it and have a read. It is quite frightening. And the fact that they've been planning this for so long. Tanya, what have you got here? A lot of them decide not to take the cash. They're afraid of being robbed. Okay, yeah. Well, okay, I can understand that robbery scenario at markets, I suppose. That does make a little bit of sense. But even still, if I was demanded to pay by card, I probably wouldn't. I'd say, you come around and see me one day, bring it to my house. I might have the cash for you then. Sorry. Okay, post a link in the description. I can't post a link to what I'm reading from, unfortunately, because it's inside a reader. However, the Galactic Larry Cans did find it, and I don't know, Bradford, can you post it up again for me, mate, if you could, please? I did hear a little bit about this today. Subway chain in Canada has done a deal with the Canadian government. Foreigners get rubber stamp work visas to live, work in Canada for 2 years, no English required, and they don't listen. Same kind of deal happened here in Queensland after they started enforcing no jab, no job, and they locked down the state. The only people that were allowed and encouraged to come to the border and cross it were anybody living outside of it who wanted to get out of a southern state, had been jabbed, was prepared to drive to the Queensland border, accept a Queensland job because somebody who refused to be jabbed lost their job. So there were a lot of job vacancies. So all these southerners came up, took those jobs and got paid a $1,500 incentive once they had in Queensland. And I know this for a fact because I had people working in the system that were paying out that $1,500. And these folks would arrive from, I don't know, say Victoria, one day, get the house because they would walk in and pay 12 months up front. This is at the beginning of the rental crisis when the rents were going through the roof, and there were 350 people turning up to look at a 2-bedroom shithole in the middle of Budrum. I shit you not. Absolutely horrendous 2-bedroom shithole made out of Besser block that looked like it was a prison cell. Had 350 people turn up to look at it one day. And they wanted an exorbitant amount for it. I want to say it was over $500 a week. That's what that created. But if you came up, you took a job, and you took the $1,500 payment Queensland government were giving you, the incentive to come up here, well, you walked straight into one of those job network providers the first day after you had your house given to you, and you told them your address and you demanded your $1,500, because that's exactly what happened. These southerners come up, they got their address, they walked in, and they started demanding the $1,500 the government was giving them to move there. So not only did they get to come in, screw up housing rental prices, disrupt jobs, communities, lives, they also managed to cop a $1,500 payment from we, the Queensland taxpayers, from that piece of shit Anastasia Pluckersuck and the bunch of incompetence that she calls a government. So, yeah, I might be a bit bitter. I might be a bit angry. I'm not angry at the people who came up. They just did what they did. I mean, Christ, why would you sit in bloody Melbourne and freeze your ass off during lockdown if you could get out and come to Queensland? Of course you would. Why wouldn't you? So, yeah, don't blame you. Do want to hang Anastasia Pluckerchuck for it, though, and the government beside her. Shouldn't be one tree. Should be an entire bloody forest filled with these pricks. And, yeah. So, Cam, you're subscribed and you didn't get the notification either. Well, there's a shock. I did get the notification tonight for tonight's show. And I think you probably heard it go off in the background 10 minutes into me starting the show. So it did come through behind me. I heard it come through. What else have we got in here? Any other questions you want me for tonight, folks? Type them down the bottom. I'm nearly there. What have you got here, Graham? G. Edward Griffith's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. I've got a sneaking suspicion I have that somewhere floating around too. Yes, the history of the creation of the Federal Reserve. That one probably goes into the Titanic and the Astors and associated others as well. I will go forward and try and dig that one up. It rings a bell. I've got a sneaking suspicion I have it in an online library of mine somewhere. I'll have to go digging it out. Subway managers are fuming at Subway. Yeah, well, they're doing the same here in Australia. So they're not doing it with Subway people here, though. They're doing it with police. Queensland Police just rolled out 500 new international recruits. Now, have those recruits actually become Australian citizens? I doubt it. They've actually done I think it was 5-month, not 9-month course. Maybe it wasn't even months, could have been weeks for all I know. But it was certainly a shortened down police training course so that they could get them on the streets faster. Remember to ask them, do they have a warrant card? Got to have a warrant card on you at all times. New warrant card has to be sworn out every day you put on the uniform. Police, you need to carry it with you. If you don't carry it with you, you have no lawful authority. None. Make sure you carry your warrant card. If you're not issued with one, put the gun belt down, take the hat off, go home for the day. You have no power. You have no authority. You need a warrant card. Don't go holding out for the corporation to protect you. The people know that the corporation is protecting you, and the people now know how to take down your corporation. And we're coming. So any reliance that the corporation will protect you, any reliance that, I was just doing my job, I was just following my training, I was just doing what they told me to do, isn't going to cut it. No way. And you are going to be tasked, you are going to be struck with a lot of belligerent Aussies who are not going to believe your bona fides, who are not going to believe you are lawfully in the position of a police officer. And I guarantee you, particularly as you've probably not come from a Commonwealth country, although a number of our new recruits have, South Africa being a large place where we've recruited a lot of new police from. In fact, Africa in general, they've pulled a lot of immigrants from Africa. I don't know how many black Africans they've actually brought out here, because it has been my experience that the black Africans tend to be the poorest and don't get access to international travel all that often. But plenty of white ones will be out here, have no doubt. And they will maybe not have had to have paid the couple of $1 million surety that South Africans, if they want to migrate to Australia, have to pay, or Germans for that matter. Why do they have to pay that? Well, because they might get sick in the first few years and they get here and they might need to go to a hospital and need to get covered, and the government wants to make sure that they pay for their own Medicare or medical support, amongst other things. So South Africans, Germans, bring millions before you can come to the country. But if you come from some shithole little land that you can be coerced, bribed, and tempted into voting Labor for the rest of your life, hey, you can come for nothing. You can come for nothing. And it's probably not just one party. I'm not just blaming the Labor Party. The Liberal Party are just as guilty. So stuff them all, rotten, filthy bastards they are. Thank you very much, the Galactic Larrican. I'm not sure if you posted it again, but there you go. That is the link to the free version of Silent Weapons for Secret Wars. Thank Bradford for finding that one. I'll leave it up for a little bit longer while I'm glancing through some of these. Remember to carry cash. Yes, always have some cash on you, folks, because one day, hopefully soon, the banks are going to shut and you won't be able to get at it at all. 160 people watching on Nun 2K. So all up, we've got a bit under 300 watching at the moment. So a bit half and half, it looks like, Vince. So that's going all right. Can't wait for hunting season. Good on you, Brad. I don't mind that either. Stupid jabbed Southerners. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think you're right, Ken. There's not a lot of empathy left in many of the jabbed Victorians, unless you get into a My Place, where you'll find plenty of that. A lot of good people doing a lot of good things. But for whatever reason, and I know this from bitter personal experience, it's screwing with people's heads down there, screwing their bodies, screwing their minds. And as sad as it is, particularly if you happen to have family and they're being deeply affected by it, as have I, then it's sad, but they made the decision. They refused to even entertain a conversation. They probably chose, if your group is anything like mine, probably chose to ridicule you, to abuse you, and then to cut you out of their lives. And that's fine if that's what they choose to do. But don't expect me to get too sympathetic about the way their lives are going. I don't. I'm afraid I don't have the luxury of feeling sorry for people, and nor should you. It's sad, but I gain great solace out of the fact that these people made a conscious decision without thinking about the consequences. And we're different. We made a conscious decision because we thought about the consequences. That is the big difference between us and them. Some of them are starting to see the folly. They're starting to see the consequences of their decision, and they're starting to regret it. Some of them aren't seeing it all. I had a conversation today with people. Oh, yeah, such and such has had 3 strokes since we last saw him. Oh, yeah, oh, well, he's getting older. Yeah. Oh, look, so-and-so's gone and fallen over and they can't get fixed, nothing seems to be mending like it used to. And now they've got a lung infection and somebody went in for a toenail infection and came out dead. Nothing strange about that. No. Toenail must have given him a blood clot. Aneurysm killed him from a toenail. I mean, these are just some of the stupid things that people will say to themselves in their heads. And many of them know there are consequences, bad consequences for the decision that they made badly. But to admit that is too much for them. They cannot admit that they were wrong. They cannot admit that we were right. And they do not want to admit to themselves that the consequences of their decision might well be life-threatening, both to them and to anybody else who they got to make the decision for, like their children. How many parents are out there tonight weeping quietly into their meal because one of their children died playing soccer last weekend, had a heart attack on the field, or died a year ago, or died 18 months ago? Doesn't really matter. Admittedly, the sirens on Saturday mornings probably aren't as frequent as they were 8, 12 months ago, but they're still there. And now they don't put the sirens on a lot. They just put the lights on. Why bother scaring people? Another vax delivery on the way, or vaxxed injury delivery on the way to the hospital. Terribly sad. So yes, we can't really think about these folks who will not see, who will not be told, because they're too embarrassed. They're too humiliated to admit that they were wrong, too humiliated to admit that they failed the IQ test, that they tell us we're too stupid to pass. All right? They tell us that we're irresponsible. They tell us that we're the ones putting society in danger. I have no sympathy. None. You made your decision. You didn't think about the consequences. And now you get to live those consequences. Yeah, Stephen, I like what you're saying there. Bring your heart if you come to Oz. Yeah, you'll find a lot of Aussies have got a great deal of heart. Whether or not they've got the balls to go along with it, we'll find out. Because nothing ends. Nothing ends until we make it end, folks. Until we stop it. Because those bastards doing it to us aren't going to stop because they've had enough. So we need to get the numbers on our side, folks. Until the numbers are on our side, we are fighting in a very disadvantaged position where some people are put in or tested in very, very frightening ways. There is a man in our community who comes from Townsville. Right now, he's sitting at the end of a 5th week in a mental hospital where they can't find anything wrong with him. But because somebody decided to report him as having, some mental problems, they've shoved him deep in a mental ward. Now, there's nothing wrong with him. I spoke to him today. In fact, I was going to interview him this afternoon, but something else turned up. And I couldn't get back to it. So we will get to that interview. But there is, for all intents and purposes, nothing wrong with this bloke. By medical admission, they can't find anything wrong with him. But he cannot get out of a mental hospital. He's been put in there. He can't get out. He has no recourse. Now, unless maybe one of you can help, do you have any knowledge about psychiatric facilities, psychiatric hospitals? He was admitted supposedly under the advice of a friend, and 5 weeks later, in the mental ward, they've got nothing. They keep jabbing him, poking him, pricking him. But he has been a very vocal proponent against what's going on in far north Queensland. He's been a very vocal proponent against the local mayor up there, whose best mate is Anastasia Pluckerfuck. And they two have recently gone off on a little junket together. I forget where it was, China, Europe, maybe both. Might have been America, I don't know. Could have been all three. God knows when these bitches get together, they like to spend money, so it wouldn't matter. They'd go around the world 3 times and thoroughly enjoy it and have us pay for it. That's the kind of people these people are. But they also work in some interesting ways, and they've locked this bloke up in a mental institution with no way for him to clear himself out of it until the doctors say, oh, yeah, you're okay. So maybe there is a way to get him out. I'm just unaware of it. If you know of some way, independent evaluation, whatever, is there a way we can get this done? Email me, carl@vofhq.com, and we'll endeavour to try and put something in place to help this guy because, I don't know, ever seen A Clockwork Orange? Can only be in there so long. And we want to help. He's a good man who's been doing good things for the Townsville community for many, many, many years. So if you've got any ideas on how we might be able to help him, please get in touch. Keith got banned from family Christmases 2 years ago because all been jabbed, and yeah, you were such a danger. Yeah. What about this Christmas? Would you invite them to your place? Are you going back? Should you be invited again? What sort of ban? What sort of an imprint does a ban from family Christmas leave on you, Ken? Can't be a good one. I wouldn't have thought. I didn't get invited for Christmas all that often with my family, so down there. So, and I rest assured I won't ever be bothering to go again. Well, I won't be getting the invite. So, it's a little weird. Galactic Larrikins are full of great information tonight, aren't they? Nobody ever really dies. Ain't that the truth? Have you heard about one of the disgusting things that they do with our children, folks, to get rid of them? We were talking the other day, it was probably on the Rumble show, and there was a couple of things that got said there that ordinarily I would probably have talked up a bit, but there was so much coming through that I didn't pick it up. But one of the things that the elite do, and this is for their special children, if they've had a particularly nice relationship with a child, and when I say particularly nice, I mean they've raped them, they've fed off them, they've bled them, they've terrorized, horrified, mutilated, done everything else to them. But these sick bastards get a feeling a bit of cat, like to their pet cat. And rather than going and just getting you cremated and taking your ashes around, they go one better. The human body is carbon-based. So what do? they crush the human body into a diamond, and then they wear it. Special little jewelry layouts too, I'm led to believe. But it's possible for you to carry all of your horrifying memories around on your fingers or in a pendant around your neck or whatever, and have great feelings about all the marvelous times you had on the blood of that terrified child. How sick are these people? How fucking sick. God. We're doing this for the kids, folks. We have to stop this for the children. When I first became aware of what they were doing to children, I've never shown it to you, but I did a video when I first heard what was happening to our children, and I recorded it on my iPad with a view to posting it, and I was too scared just weak, after I'd recorded it, because I thought I looked a bit silly. Thought I looked a bit emotional, thought I looked a bit melodramatic, maybe. So I've never posted it. I don't know that I will, but if you have read, if you have gone down the rabbit holes, if you've seen some of the videos, if you've heard some of the sounds, then you will know that we have to stop this for our children. They cannot be allowed to keep doing to our kids what they're doing. It cannot be allowed. They must be made pay for it. Humanity cannot move forward while we have people like this in our midst. Humanity can't move forward while we've got normies walking around in our midst. Normies who refuse to have their eyes opened and who have them opened and then are too humiliated, embarrassed, or mortified to actually open up and support the fight. Okay, we can't get everybody involved. There are some people too old, too weak. But there are plenty of people like you and I who can. Plenty of people. Don't stop talking about it. Keep telling them. Next time somebody says, oh, isn't that a lovely diamond? Say, you know the elites make diamonds out of children, don't you? Crush them down into nothing. And there might be 4 or 5 kids in one diamond. There might be a dozen. I don't know how many people it takes to make a diamond. But these bastards are rich. They're elites. Have you ever seen them with a small diamond? Me either. So I don't know how much carbon comes out of a tiny little body that has been drained and abused for so long. But my guess is you'd need more than one. I think you'd need a few to make a good-sized diamond. So tell them about that. Yeah, I know, Vince. Most people aren't properly informed about the issues of the jab. I have no sympathy for you either, for you people who are not properly informed, because if you held your fucking arm out and you weren't properly informed, that's your fault. Did you ask? Did you say? Did you question? Were you lied to? If that is the case, great. You've got a leg to stand on going forward, provided you live long enough and your leg doesn't fall off because of the decision you made. Right? Yes, people were briefed on the jab, but they were scared into it. They were not told of the adverse reactions that were possible. And that falls squarely on our medical fraternity, doctors, nurses. You're all going. They hung them at the end of the Second World War in Nuremberg, and we will do the same here. You profit-seeking bastards. Or you complete imbecilic fucking morons who went against your own inner knowledge, your own training, your own education, and thought that some bunch of stuffed shirts on the APRA board knew better than you. Oh, well, guess you got a new holiday out of it, paid off the house maybe, got another house that you can rent out now for an exorbitant fee, new set of golf clubs, overseas holiday, and all the kids' private schooling paid off for the next few years. I hope you're happy. I hope the kids live long enough to finish the school, because no doubt you were stupid enough to go and get them jabbed as well. Yeah, still a bit bitter about that. And we are going to stay bitter about that, folks. We have to. There is no forgiveness for what they did to us, because there was no forgiveness for us for supposedly putting them in such great danger. These bloody morons. And the day where the mainstream media is brought to heel on this, when the likes of, anybody on television or radio that have been spruiking the benefits of getting jabbed are brought to justice, I'll be there, smiling, watching, applauding at times. I'll also shake my head. There'll be a bit of sadness. You were warned. But you made the decision to go forward anyway. That puts you on one side or the other. Doesn't give you an ambiguous place in this fight. You picked your side and the consequences, and now you're living them. So am I. You might think I'm living a horrible, shitful life. It's not the world's greatest life, I'll admit. But I'm very happy, very comfortable with it, and I'm not having to lie to people every day just to get my paycheck, like you bastards are in the mainstream media. Lying, filthy bastards. Had enough of you, really have. I guess that's bearing out. I've had a few communications from people in the last few days. Some won't be talking to me anymore. Not that they've been talking to me since all this bullshit started, so I don't seem to know why they feel it's going to have such a dramatic impact on me. The problem that most people don't understand with folks like me, and I suspect a bit like you, is that we don't really care if you don't talk to us ever again. We tried explaining to you why you shouldn't have made the decision that you made, and you made us feel bad. You tried very badly to intimidate us, to threaten us, to cajole us, to abuse us, to name call, to do anything you could, and to out us in certain instances. No, so don't. You made those choices. You made those decisions. Sure, you might find people around you who are going to forgive that, but I'm not. When you need the help, we'll be here, but you're going to have to ask for it. You're going to have to admit that you need it, that you should have known earlier. I'm not expecting you to be, or those sorts of people to be begging us for help or anything like that, but they need to be made aware that they aren't at the top of the queue. You made a choice. You live with those consequences. And if that consequence is you're last through the med beds, then that is the consequence. Just as an example. Because I can guarantee you, jabbed up dickheads, you won't be the first ones in there. Nobody with that level of stupidity, nobody with that level of inability to question, nobody with that level of intelligence, the intelligence of a trained dog, is going to get first go at those med beds. Fingers crossed you live long enough for when your term comes. But there's a lot of us that'll go through them first. And yeah. Andrew Smith, what a very good point you raised. Respect must be earned. Young people today seem to have a problem with that. You got to respect me. No, I don't. You got to do something that engenders respect before I will respect you. I will give you the respect of a human being. You're equal to me. You breathe air. Hopefully, you've got a brain that works, and you've got a heart that wants to do the right thing for people more than yourself. If that's good, then we're going to get along really well. But kids, not so much. Kids nowadays are very greedy, and they get that from their parents, their families. They've got to have the latest and greatest thing. Now, we've all had to have it. I'm not saying it's just kids of today. We all remember when we were kids and some friend of ours got something that you just had to have, be it a doll or a toy or a, yo-yo or God, whatever the hell it was, because we didn't have iPads and iPhones and all that sort of shit in those days. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting time going forward. The sympathy vote has sailed from this place, I can tell you. We will help, but don't come bitch, moan, cry, carry on about woe is me. You made the decision. The consequence is yours. We will help. We will help. But we're not going to get involved in your misery. There is no point. You are the bearer of your own misery. You are the makers of your own misery. And we choose not to be miserable, those of us who stood strong. Those of us who were coerced, sadly, well, I think they'll get fixed first. Going through the beds just between you, me, and the gatepost. There is also some stuff that you can do for yourself now if you want to purge yourself of the spike protein. Start eating eggs. Egg yolks are blocking the spike protein, and that is a science fact that has been proven. So a couple of eggs every day. Have a couple of eggs for breakfast, just fried, boiled, whatever you want to do. Make sure you eat the yolks because they're the bits that inhibit the spike protein. There is also ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, which you can make yourself at home very easily. And have a little teaspoon of that a day. That'll clean you right out. And ivermectin, yes, the horse paste. You can use it. You can actually take the horse paste if you want. All the horse paste is the tablet not dried out and compressed. That's the only difference. And to think that it is a horse paste is just, or a horse medicine is just ignorance that I would expect of a troll. That sort of that level of stupid I would expect from a troll. Ivermectin is known in Africa as the Sunday pill. That means it's been given out every Sunday to every African forever, since it was invented. The inventor of ivermectin got a Nobel Peace Prize. It is one of the 13 most prevalent medications in the world until the cold came along, because it would fix that cold. It would fix all the symptoms straight away. Well, we couldn't have that. There's no money in that because ivermectin is now no longer under patent. Anybody can make it for next to nothing. The cheaper, the better. And that's why it is available to every African every Sunday, because they are as cheap as shit to make and hand out. You don't make money out of ivermectin. You save lives. But that's not good enough for Big Pharma. So that's why ivermectin was effectively taken from us. And yeah, no fun. Keep an eye out. Bit of news coming up on the crypto world. I think a little bit later on this week, there's some interesting new apps that are being toyed around with at the moment. I've got one on my phone I'm having a bit of a play with at the moment. I know nothing about it. And it's an exchange. So I'm going to have a bit of a play. We'll see what happens. God knows if I'm going to get hacked or lost, it's going to be a bad way. Ivermectin, Neville. Yes. I should have said that. Thank you, Neville. Ivermectin is pretty much always done by body weight. So that's why it comes as a paste for horses. You've got a bit of an idea of how much you've got to give a horse that weighs X amount of hundreds of kilos rather than feed it tablets. Ours, on the other hand, I think the tablets are worked out on a milligram basis. So if you are a child, you take 1 or half a tablet from memory, and adults of a certain weight range take 1. And if maybe you're carrying a bit more weight, maybe you take 1.5. I don't know. There are plenty of areas of advice to get on how to take your ivermectin or your hydroxychloroquine. And I would suggest to you that My Place in your local town, or get a hold of myplaceaustralia.org, and they will be able to help you with a few details there on how best to dose yourself. Camilo's also got one, wormwood. Oh, yeah. Now, this was something we were talking about the other day. You can use wormwood, NaC, zinc, and vitamin C. I've heard vitamin D is also good, and vitamin B, but that might be just to get over a hangover and sunburn. I'm not sure. It was a long conversation. Hemp oil, yes. I don't know, Aurora. Hemp oil, really great stuff. I can't light it. I've had all bugger a time trying to light it. But don't know how you smoke it if you can't light it. But anyway, that's a whole other story. South Africa has Teletubbies in their parliament. Oh, God. Was there ever a worse television show than the Teletubbies, I ask you? Four Teletubbies that don't actually speak any language trying to communicate with kids who are trying to learn language. Oh, God, it was a horrible show. Yep, Pfizer was paying for mandates to be encouraged and enforced absolutely everywhere. There is a non-disclosure that every government has signed about that particular agreement. It's a bit of a wonder we all know about it, but by God, we all know about it. And the other agreement that our government has signed is to keep buying this shit. Now, Australia has stockpiles of it at the moment. They can't give this shit away. Nobody's lining up for it unless they are a complete flat line in the scone. Nobody is lining up to get this jab. Having said that, I know 2 people here who've lined up and had their 5th recently. Flat line in the scone. Absolutely. Certainly in one of those cases. Definite flat line in the scone. And those people can't be helped. Just let them go. Give them a clap. Tell them you've done your duty. Woohoo! I hope it keeps you safe, but there is no point having a conversation with them about it. Absolutely none. So don't waste your breath. Don't get yourself in a tiz and move on. Try and pick an easier target. Bimectin. Bimectin paste is a horse tranquilizer. Right. Well, maybe that's the one we don't want to go and get confused with, because I don't think I'd want to be having horse tranquilizer. Ketamine, isn't that a horse tranquilizer? I know drug addicts who've died on ketamine. Well, I knew them. Yeah, not good. Mentally bankrupt, Andrew. That is a brilliant way of describing. Yes. Little flat line in the brain. Mentally bankrupt. Good way of putting it. All right, folks, I'm going to let you go. We've been going for bloody an hour and a half. Didn't expect that tonight. That document is worth a read. If you are remotely interested in going and getting it, the Galactic Larrikin posted up site there earlier. You can go back, grab a screenshot of it, whatever you would prefer. But please go and read it. It is only a 78-page document, but every page is an eye-opener, a huge eye-opener. So go check it out. Obviously, the free version is available through the link that the Galactic Larrikins have posted up. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. The book is called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It is a frightening example of what they are doing to us, and it is pretty much the blueprint. There is absolutely no denying that this is very closely linked to what we are going through right this moment. So if you are at all in any concern at all, then please, folks, read this book. See what it'll do for you. It will open your mind. Maybe if you've got some friends and family who don't understand what's going on here, then you can possibly share that book with them too, and see whether or not that opens a bit of sight into their insight into the truth of what's going on. Fingers crossed. That's all we can hope for. But this book, I would have thought, would be a very good example of how to point out what they're doing to us, because it explains it in absolute detail magnificently. Frightening friggin' thing that it is, but it is what it is. Maybe it is the catalyst that we need to open up people's eyes. If that is the case, then get it out to as many as you can, as far and wide as you possibly can. And if you want, send me a note. I'll read a bit more of it tomorrow night, but you should be able to get it now for yourself on nothing. And like I say, it's only 78 pages and a hell of an eye-opener. All right, folks, going to love you and leave you for tonight. please be safe on the roads if you're out there. There's been some more horror on the roads in Queensland over the last few days, and down south again. So please, folks, just take it easy on the roads. We want everybody to get where they're going, even the ones that are fully jabbed.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!